So why you take the reins and tell us about how you got
So
started in boxing?
I was actually so right out of high school, I went right into the military. I was in the Army Reserves for about 9 years, and my whole family is public safety, police, firemen, and that's kind of sort of just growing up. I go to Grandpa's the firehouse. I get to go sit on the fire truck. He puts the lights on. My uncle go to the police station, sit in the car. I was fascinated growing up, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. Um, so when I graduated high school, I went right into the military. Came out of the military. Um, I was married. I had my first daughter when I was 21, and I went to the police academy, and I was hired um, as a police officer in 1998. I was 19 years old, and I mean today you can never put a 19-year-old kid on the street as a police officer. It's a totally different world. But yeah, it was a long, long time ago. I was married. I had kids. I had a life, a wife, a career. Boxing was just. I never chose boxing, or boxing never chose me. I'm the one that chose boxing. When I first got hired with the police department, there was a man named Gene Reed, Irish Gene Reed, his name was, and he owned the Irish Boxing Club in Scranton, Pennsylvania, in Weston Field. It's still there now. Um, I still talk to all these guys on Facebook and say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" But when I first was hired, Gene Reed was a professional boxer, and he worked for the city as stop signs. He would work with the traffic lights. If something's wrong, I got to direct traffic. He'd be there. I'd have the police car with the lights on, directing traffic, and he would say, "Hey, I got a boxing gym. If you're interested, coming down, check it out." And okay, I'll come down and check it out. See what this is about. I wanted to have something extra. Uh, Karate, jujitsu, boxing, something extra, just to keep myself, young, fresh, in shape, and just for on the street. I went down to Weston Field, and literally, I took maybe 2 weeks of lessons. The first day, I stood in front of a mirror and I jabbed 10,000 times. I'm like, this sucks. Like, I want to box. I want to fight. Um, and he got talking about the Keystone State Games, which is like the Pennsylvania state um, it's a big, huge event. Boxing, all kinds of different sporting events, and they had boxing. So I talked to my father, and I'm like, Dad, let's go to these fights. I want to fight. And he's like, Are you crazy? It was literally 3 weeks, maybe a month after I took my first lesson. I was watching videos on TV, reading the Ring magazine was huge back in the day. The Ring magazine was like the Bible of you get it and read it, and I went and had my first fight by myself with my dad at the Keystone State Games in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I had no business being in the ring. I had no idea what I was doing. I went down with shorts, and I had no trainer. Some guys were down there. They spoke Spanish. I didn't even know what they were talking about in my corner. And I just fought and I lost. Obviously, I lost, but I fell in love. It was amazing. It was great. I loved it. And I lost my first 7 amateur fights. I I work as a police officer, going to the gym training, and going by myself. A lot of these USA boxing gyms, you have these events every couple years or every couple months. We're gonna go as a team. I go on USA Boxing on the computer, and where's the fights? I'll drive. Let's go. I don't wait for a coach. I just go on my own. So
But
I
at this
just
point, you've got no coach, no boxing trainer.
no, not at all.
So you're arranging these
I,
fights yourself.
100%. I was there with Gene, Gene Reed, training with them, but I was going to these fights totally by myself. Me and my dad, even throughout my whole entire professional career, my father traveled all over the world with me. He was my cut man. He wasn't really a cut man. He was like my water boy. He was like, bro, he just was there with me, and it was amazing to have him with me during my career. But I would come home from the fights, and everyone's like, you got a black eye. And I'm like, what are you doing? They had no idea because I wasn't telling them. And I worked 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Scranton. I would drive an hour and a half to Philly, and I would go
Oh,
train down there. come home at night, sleep, do it the next day. I spent a lot of time in Easton with Larry Holmes' boxing gym. I spent a lot of time there
Nice.
training with those guys. Um, you get off of work and you're driving to Philly. This is like, again, 2000, 2001. And I'm the white cop coming in from Philly, driving down, and I got all these guys in the ring. Just get them in the ring. I want to box up. Let's go. There was never a problem trying to find sparring partners because every day I was in the gym, I have 10 guys want to beat my ass in the ring.
So everyone knew you were a policeman, did they?
Yeah, 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 yeah. But it was amazing. I got beat up by kids, 15, 16-year-old kids beat me up. I mean, yeah, I took beatings and I just kept coming back, kept coming back. The only way you're going to learn is to just keep going back. If you quit, um, and ultimately, 3 years later, I was number 3 in the country, super heavyweight. I won Golden Gloves, multiple tournaments. I went to all national tournaments, U.S. championships, Golden Gloves championships out in Vegas, Reno, Nevada, Colorado Springs. I was at the USA Olympic Training Center for a couple tournaments. Had a good amateur career, and I went pro in 2003.
So how long did that whole process take from being a complete beginner to then becoming number 3 ranked heavyweight amateur boxer?
I'd say 3 years.
3 years.
It got to the point where I would drive down to Philly and there'd be less and less guys wanting to spar with me. And I'm like, oh, wait a second here. I'm getting something here, because the guys knew they could beat me up. And once I started touching them a little bit and started cracking them, okay, I earned my respect, so. But it was a long process, man. You work 7 to 3, and my daughter's young at the time. I get in the car, I drive to Philly. You get beat up, you drive home. You're like, yeah. The whole time you're driving home, you're like, why am I doing this? I'm getting beat up every day. I'm driving all this time. This is crazy. What am I doing this for? But I fell in love with boxing, and my wife supported me at the time, and it was great. Went to work the next day. On the weekends I would train, and at this time too, I'm on our city SWAT team. So we did a lot of extra training than just your normal shift work.
Yeah.
So it was hard to train like you needed to and work all these hours. But ultimately, I went pro in 2003. Right out of the amateurs, I signed with a promotional company called Goose and Tudor, Dan Goosen.
Right.
Dan Goosen had Fox Sports, Friday Night Fights, Tuesday Night Fights. He was a huge promoter at the time. So my first 4, 5, 6 fights were on television right away. So I got exposed pretty quick to that side of boxing. I'm working 7 to 3. I would have to take vacation days, or I would take vacation from work just to go to training camp for a couple days, for a couple weeks, because I didn't have the days to ultimately take off that I had to go and fight. So I had 7 pro fights, and it got to the point I was, gaining a lot of traction. I was getting known out there, and my wife at the time and I were talking and said, okay, boxing is a very small window. Let's quit the police department. And ultimately, her family was in Orlando. They're pastors of a church in Orlando, so she ultimately got a job at the church. We moved to Orlando so she can work, and then I pursued my boxing career. And I was a full-time fighter until about 2017-ish. So for about 10, 11 years.
So when
Yeah.
did you feel like you sort of, so going back to when you started boxing, amateur boxing, when did you sort of feel like you turned the corner and all of a sudden, I'm getting good at this? How long did that sort of process take? Because I get a lot of questions, or a lot of inquiries from my own club about people want to start boxing, they want to turn professional, they're in their 20s, and they don't realise how much hard work it is. But for yourself, you're training a lot and working full time as well. When did you feel like it sort of clicked and you thought, now I'm getting good at this, I can make a career out of this?
I will say that I dedicated myself to the game. I was like, you know what? I want to learn this game. I want to learn this game. No matter what it takes, I want to learn this game. So I was, and I would say in the beginning of my marriage when my kids were born, my daughter was coming to the boxing gym with me. She's in a car seat, 1, 2 years old. She's at the boxing gym with me. Um, and that took a while. Then you win a fight, and you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. I like this feeling. And then you win another fight, and you're like, oh man. And then you just continue. You keep growing. You keep growing. I had, I mean, back in the day, we had VHS tapes. Like my
Yeah.
mother, my mother would come to these fights, and she would have a VHS camera,
Mhm.
and she would tape the fight, and then I go home, take the fight out, put in the TV, and I would watch the fight, and oh wow, this is cool. And then I have all the fights still, so I have a VHS tape player, in my little room. I can go watch these fights, and you watch the fights when I first started, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so bad. It's absolutely terrible. But at the end of the day, I didn't quit. It wasn't. I loved it so much, and I didn't quit. And that's,
So
I
why
would
do you
say,
think that
about.
is? Why do you think that is? What was the motivation when you're struggling early on and you get in being in sparring and you're getting home hurt? What?
It was a. I loved it. It was me and another man. It's not. You have football players, 12 against 12. It's a team. It's a team sport. Basketball, 5-on-5. It's a team sport. This is me and you getting in a ring, and who knows the range better? Who knows the movement better? Who knows the jab better? When to throw what punch at what time? And boxing's very, very. It's like chess. It's
Mm,
very, very intricate. It's not just two big guys in there beating each other up, bro. There's steps, there's angles, there's little tiny movements that people don't even realize is going on in there. And once you figure that out, and you get to figure out another man, it's like, oh, I got you, and it's like, yeah, it's a clarity that you get. Like, oh man, even now I'm 47, I'm still very active in the gym, and I get these kids who's they don't know who I am. I don't go in the gym and I'm this and I'm that. I haven't. They don't even. Some of these kids don't even know who I am, and we get in the ring and they can't even touch me, and they're like, why can't I hit you? You're standing right there, but I can't hit you because there's little tiny movements, little tiny things, and as the first time you hit somebody with the right hand, you're like, oh shit, that. Yeah. So he sat me in the back room. What do you want to do with this? I had a couple more fights. I fought a guy named Malcolm Tan. Malcolm Tan was like 15-0, 16-0. I was like 5-0 at the time. We fought in California, 8 rounds on Fox Sports, maybe. I think the fight's on YouTube. You can check it out. But it was my first actual real camp that I went away. I had my
nice.
first training camp. Harold Knight, Shadow. He
Oh yes,
was Lennox Lewis's
with
second
Lex Lewis. Yeah.
to Emmanuel Stewart, and Shadow is an amazing boxing coach. And he was my first real training camp that I had with him. Um, yeah, that's when the first time, because I train. You work during the day, you train at night, you come home. But this is the first time I said, okay, I need to go away. I need to leave my family, leave my job, go to another place where I'm uncomfortable, living in a hotel, and just live, sleep, eat, and shit boxing. That was all I did. And I lost the fight, but it was a great performance. Um, Everyone was super happy after the fight. I mean, Dan Goosen gave me a ton of props, and that is the first time when I met James Toney. James Toney was there, and he was actually sparring with Malcolm for this fight. And James came in the locker room, and he was like, James is very, very loud, and hey, what's up, man? How you doing, bro? Great fight. Maybe we get you in camp sometime. And I'm like, this is James Toney. Like, Jesus, I'm like shocked. So it was a huge. It opened a lot of doors for me, that particular fight. Even though I lost, um, on paper, I won the crowd. I won Dan. I won James, and ultimately, James was signed with a manager named John Arthur. John Arthur is now passed away. I was signed with John, with James, and we both had Dan Goosen. So we had a both manager, both same promoter, and we ultimately, from that fight with Malcolm Tan, I was invited out to Wild Card, with Freddie Roach's gym in Hollywood, California, and they wanted me to come out to camp with James. I didn't even know what to expect. I had no idea. And again, I'm this white dude from Scranton, Pennsylvania, flying out to Hollywood, California. And you got to think, boxing to me is like, this is like these are gods. Like these men are, I watched my father and I watched the fights growing up, all these Hagler Hearns and all these huge fights, ABC Sports,
Mm.
Saturday afternoon fights. We watched the fights growing up, me and my dad. We went to see local fights in Scranton when they at the CYC in Scranton. We would Catholic Youth Center. We'd go there and you see the fights. And now I'm going to California. I never imagined starting my boxing career amateur just as a hobby, that I would have an amateur career, go pro, and now I'm on an airplane flying to California to be with James Toney. I'm like, I'm still shocked. Like I think about my career, I'm like, what? It wasn't supposed to happen like that. So I get out there with James. When you're a wild card, this is 2005, 2006. This is when James was like James Toney. Like he's getting ready for my first camp. I was with him. He was getting ready for Vasily Jirov. It was I think IBF Cruiserweight Championship.
Yeah.
Um,
Great fight that was, wasn't it?
Fight of the year, I think it was.
Mm.
Amazing, amazing fight. That fight was in Connecticut, I think. But I go to the hotel. I get in the gym. I get my bags. I'm there for a couple of days. The first day at the gym, I come up. You drive in the back of Wild Card, and it's Wild Card at this time was like the pinnacle boxing gym. Every celebrity's there. Everybody's there training. Every boxer wants to be at Wild Card. With Freddie Roach and all these guys. Manny Pacquiao, he's there. But every fighter would have their certain particular times. So James would be like 1 to 3. Manny would be 3 to 5. So these guys would be. It wouldn't be so many people in the gym. So whatever time James is, I walk up the stairs and I get in the gym, and James is over there with his hands wraps, and he literally is like, "Get in the fucking ring, you white cop! I'm gonna beat your ass!" And I'm like, this is my first day. I don't know what to expect, and he's just going off screaming, "I'm gonna beat your ass! I hope you're ready!" And then he's got all his entourage, and they're screaming and yelling. I'm terrified. I'm like, what? I'm in another country or another state, another gym. I don't know. I'm by myself. I'm terrified. The first day we spar, I get beat up. The second day I get beat up. And he's just screaming every day, "Get in here. I'm going to beat your ass. You're. I'm like, what? And go back to my hotel room. I'm on the phone with my wife crying. Like, what am I doing here? I'm getting beat up. I don't belong here. This isn't for me. And one day we're sparring, and I'm just like, fuck it, whatever. I'm like, I come right back at him. Fuck you, I'm gonna beat you. And I crack him, and we for like 2 or 3 rounds, we went to war. We just went. And when I was done, the place was quiet. I got out of the ring. Guys were coming up to me, "Hey, good job, whatever." It was really, really quiet, hush, hush. The next day I got back. The next time I came in the gym, everything was fine. Everything was normal. Everything was cool. Everything was, I earned my respect. They went from whoever this guy is, okay, now he belongs, So that was my, what's the word? Baptism under fire, so to speak. I got thrown into the lion's den with these killers, and I was terrified. And then I was like, what's he going to do? He's going to hurt me? He's going to knock me out? Okay, I'm going to get back up. And then I just got back to him, and ultimately I was with James for, oh man, 3 or 4 years. I was one of his main sparring partners.
Wow, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I was with him a lot. I spent a lot of time in Hollywood. Um,
There's no
yeah,
video, isn't there? There's no video on YouTube where they come into the gym and they interviewed James Toney's sparring partners. One of them was yourself, and
yeah,
they were talking about describing James Toney. Was that the time you were just discussing when you first got there?
yeah. That was back. That was way back. That was like 2005, 2006. You gotta think 2005, 2000. I don't even think social media was like big back then. I had maybe YouTube or MySpace. I mean, I don't think there was any social media or anything like that. But um, there's a lot of gym stories but that's not like on video or, you know, pictures or whatnot. But yeah, that was a couple. HBO would come. They do their access, all access. You know, they would come in and interview you, the sparring guys, and I'm always the only single white guy. I'm always the white guy. So, man, so they come at me like right away, like, oh, how you doing? How you doing? And I'm a cop, and that's like, bro, like he's a cop. Oh, get him in the ring, everybody. Even then, I would have no problem getting sparring partners. But that's how it was, and it was amazing, and it was great, and you know, it was great. I loved every second of it because it made me realize, you know, I can do this. I can be a fighter. I mean, it was bro, it's hard going in the ring with these. I'm in the ring with James Toney. And you're looking at him like, is this him? And then he's punching you in the face. You're like, what is happening here? And it's just yeah. And then that was my real first time ever experiencing professional boxing on that level, being in an actual real training camp. And I got Freddie Roach, and you got all these guys. And you're like, I'm in the room with the greatness of boxing right now. I'm not supposed to be here. You know, this is an accident. So
So, I mean, we see it, I'm sure every gym is the same, but a lot of people coming to boxing, they might be fighting, competing, but they struggle with the mental side of boxing. What's your advice for people who struggle with the mental side of boxing? Because it's overcoming fear, and I see a lot of talent wasted um, because they can't get over that. The mental strength doesn't match the physical ability. If they can
right.
get that to match, they'll be going, so much further. So, what's your advice to these people, and how to sort of balance the two, and mentally become stronger and sort of face your fears? Because a lot of people do struggle with this, going to ring, you're going to get punched by a face. You've been in a ring with some of, James Toney, one of the greatest boxers of all time, and Deontay Wilder, one of the hardest hitters of all time. Anthony
Mm-hmm.
Joshua was also a big hitter, and he travel to his country on 6 days' notice to fight him in front of all his fans. So where do you get that mental strength from, and what is your advice to people to overcome their fears?
Fear will stop you from doing things in your life. You will miss opportunities. You'll miss huge 5 seconds of courage can change your life. If you say yes and you walk down that aisle and you step in that ring, that's the hardest part, just stepping in that ring. Um, but if somebody's just starting out, I think it's the way, honestly, you're either born with it or you're not. I think. I was raised, my father was really tough growing up. My father he worked for the electric company, and then he had a tree cutting company. So I've been cutting trees and working since I've been like 12, 13. I would start with them just little by little. But it was growing up, you're getting yelled at, you're messing up. I'm working with trees, 1,000-pound trees, that can crash. And, you know, ultimately you work with being raised by him. You always have fear, but being raised with somebody like that can at least help, you know, like point you in the right direction, I guess. If somebody's having trouble with fear, it's just something you just gotta do it. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, you're either born with it or you're not. I really don't. I don't know what I can say to how would you do that, but for me myself, it was. I graduated high school, and 2 weeks later, I was in basic training in the military. I mean, I started life right away. I wasn't like with my mom and my dad growing up, and I just started life. I'm going to be a man. I want to start my life. It was a
Sounds
mindset for myself.
sounds like you don't overthink it. You just make a decision quickly. Whereas a lot of people
Yeah,
may
you just
overthink. You took far on short notice, 6 days. You must have just, you don't have much time to think about it. You got to say yes or no on the spot. So did you not? A lot of people just end up doubting themselves because they overthink things. So did
no,
you
it's
just say yes? I'm just going
it's
to go for it.
you gotta. Life presents you with opportunities that if you don't take this opportunity for the rest of your life, you're gonna say, oh damn, I should have did that, because you never know what the project. Can you imagine if I come to Newcastle and I hit Anthony Joshua with an overhand right and I knock him out? I would literally change the world. The boxing world would be changed, like Andy Ruiz, when he knocked him out. So even though it didn't happen, the chances were definitely stacked against me. It's an opportunity, and I get to travel. You live one time. I mean, am I afraid to fight? yeah, you have those nerves, but at this point in my career, and I'm still fighting. I just fought in December in Russia. I'm still fighting a little bit. Am I afraid? No, I'm not afraid. Um, but you have to build to that. You have to go in the gym and spar and train. The key word is consistency. Go in the gym and spar and work out. And once you get over that fear, then you go and have an amateur fight. And then once you get over that fear, then it's progression. You got to have the right people around you. You got to have good people around you to point you in the right direction, to motivate you. You can do it. They say boxing is the loneliest sport in the world, which is true, because when you get in that ring and the bell rings, it's me and you. There's nobody else. But before the fight, you can get the proper people around you. If you don't have the right people around you, they can either make or break you. So if you have somebody behind you, a good coach, and can push you and get over that mental part, I think just life in general. I mean, you just got to do it. Just go for it. You only live one time. Whatever you think you should do, go talk to the girl. Next thing you know, 10 years down the road, you're married and you got kids by her. You never know. Couple seconds. Oh, this girl's too cute. Girl, go talk to her. Go. You don't think you can get the job? Apply for the job. Figure it out. You gotta do it. You can't just wait around, man. Like, yeah, opportunities are very, very small.